Hi everyone. I think we're all connecting. Welcome to this special recording of our podcast Tales from the Heart Side. I'm really thrilled to have all of you with us today in this session. My name is Raquel Lourenço. I'm program lead at Tipalo Ventures, and I'm your host for today. For those joining for the first time, Tales from the Hard Side is our podcast where we unpack the real unvarnished stories behind building and investing in industrial innovation, the kind of hard tech that reshapes how the world actually works. So, in every episode, we explore the technologies, the founders, and the markets driving the next era of manufacturing, energy, climate, and physical AI. AI. Today, it's a very special session because we have our hosts, Rafiq Ahmed, General Partner at Tipalo Ventures, and also Mitul Patel, Partner at Tipalo as well. They are ready to take us deep into our investment thesis and explain how they identify the most transformative opportunities emerging across advanced manufacturing. But we also have a very special guest with us today. I'm delighted to welcome Manuela Zoninshein. Bem-vinda, Manuela, the founder and CEO of Kadeya. If you're not familiar with Kadeya yet, they're building the world's first closed-loop beverage system, a fully autonomous solution that bottles beverages on demand at the point of service and then collects, cleans, and reuses the bottles in a truly circular loop. They are one of the most compelling real-world examples of advanced manufacturing and climate innovation intersecting to solve a massive global challenge, eliminating single-use plastic at scale. Kadeya represents exactly the type of breakthrough we love to talk about on this show. Hard tech that requires deep engineering, long-term thinking, and the courage to build outdated systems from the ground up. So of course, today you'll be able to, join the conversation by sharing your questions in the chat. So go ahead and feel free to share anything you'd like us to answer. Um, and I think we are ready to start. So thank you again for joining us, whether you're tuning in live today or listening later. Really happy to have you here. Let's get started, guys. So Rafiq and Mitul, over to you.
Thanks, Raquel. Bon dia to all our Portuguese-speaking hosts, co-hosts, and audience members as well. So we're live from Chicago. DiPaolo Ventures is a hard tech firm that Mitul and I started back in 2020. Did a first fund. We've been making some investments post the first fund, and we'd love to chat more with our new investment in Manuela and Kadeya, amazing company. And we'll dig into that and unpack it a little bit more. Um, Let me just start with a quick intro. We've been, Mitul and I have been working together on products for a long time. We started, I think we'll touch on some of this, Mitul, you can jump into, but we worked at Motorola on the design team for myself, on the engineering team for Mitul, got acquired by Google. I went on to do a startup called DemiBooks while he was setting up a amazing engineering design service company here in Chicago called MPC, and then a contract manufacturing company called AMC. In the meantime, I sold DemiBooks in 2015, and the last 10 years have been investing in early stage tech in other funds and then starting our own hard tech fund platform. What we do now is advanced manufacturing across energy, climate, and physical AI, and essentially are always looking for obviously amazing people with the right sort of ability to scale a company, but also amazing breakthrough technology. And we look for impact, but we also look for proper business cases where customers will buy the products of our portfolio companies. And so we're at an interesting time in the world, and I think there's headwinds always, but there's also a lot of tailwinds as everyone looks at how do we manufacture onshore, how do we improve our supply chains, how do we do all these things that are going to be sustainable, going to be impactful, yet be good businesses to invest in. So that's what DiPaolo Ventures is all about. Mitul, if you want to jump in, do a quick take on how we work together. And
yeah, I mean, as Rafiq mentioned, my pedigree is in electrical engineering. Did 9 years at Motorola before switching gears into product development as a service, and then turning to a full turnkey product development firm. across more than just electrical engineering, but really every discipline, electrical, mechanical, firmware, software. But really to append to DiPaolo and what Rafiq said is in terms of we're looking for impact, we're also looking for execution capability, which is just critical for a hardware focused firm, and de-risking kind of the hardware function, right, itself. And so looking at execution capability above and beyond what a typical VC would as far as, impact financial projections and things of that sort. The ability to execute the vision and bring something to market is paramount, and that's where our kind of product development pedigree dovetails in with Rafiq's investment thesis and investment capability for the partnership. So that's the 1-2 punch here.
Thanks for that. And so I'd love to bring in Manuela into the conversation and obviously hear what she's all about, what she's been doing, and then in the course of the discussion we can dig more into DiPaolo as well. Manuela, you're on mute, but let me just preface this by saying, if I look at what you guys have been doing, you've got this really cool podcast that you've started. I'd love to hear about that. You're out at Wrigley Field throwing out the first pitch for the Cubs games. You are on Fast Company's 2024 list of innovative products, and you seem to be in everything. So welcome to the show, Manuela. And you are on mute. Okay.
Yeah, just went off. Thank you for that incredible intro. The whole DiPaolo Ventures team, and a huge vote of confidence when you guys decided to invest in Kadeya, I think speaks very voluminously about what we're doing, and was really for us a check mark that we value very much, especially in the Midwest, where people are very well aware of DiPaolo already, and then increasingly on the coasts as we start making our mark even beyond the Midwest.
But start with who are you?
Yeah.
How'd you become a superwoman?
I don't superwoman. I did recently get the title Supermom though for my husband and son, so I'll take that. I guess it starts a lot right with my upbringing, and I'm sure that's true for everybody on this call. I was born in Brazil, so speak Portuguese like Raquel, and I imagine some of the others, maybe Fabiola here, or Bianca. So I was born in Brazil. My mother's American. My dad, who has since passed away, was Brazilian. They were both very socially and civically active academics, right? They kind of came of age in the 60s and 70s during major civil rights changes. And I'm not going to go down the list, but I'll say that they were on the front lines of all of the movements and activities that have led to the world we live in today. The better parts of the world we live in, I'd say. And so the environment and expectation and values in my household were always about how do you make the world better. And because my parents were academics, I was raised thinking in systems. So when I moved to the United States in second grade, I had a science fair project, was a bus that ran on garbage. My teacher told me that would never happen. Now that is happening. And I remember I had a dirty little secret, and I think whatever makes you weird as a kid is going to make you cool and interesting as an adult. So my dirty secret was I hated trash, and I stayed after school for many years. I would sort the garbage for my teachers. And when I was doing that, I wasn't thinking, okay, the garbage in my classroom is a problem. I was thinking, this is happening in every single classroom in the United States. So I think that's a big step in how entrepreneurs can and maybe should think as you're trying to solve systemic problems is, yes, start with a personal annoyance or frustration or pain point, but then very quickly think how you can understand why that happened as a result of the structures of the world that you live in. I got my parents kind of just believed in me, encouraged me to ask questions, disagree. I went to Harvard. It was kind of expected that I was going to go to a good college. That wasn't even discussion. And then when I got an internship at Goldman Sachs, my freshman summer, my dad gave me the silent treatment. And my dad was a Marxist economist to the dying day. His last words were expressing regret at not having taken up arms for the cause. So that gives you a sense of how serious and committed he was. So I didn't take that internship, and I thought I was going to go into finance. I had worked at the Chicago Board of Trade growing up to make extra money. And so that kind of set me back and set me on a totally different path. And, there's silver linings to everything. There's a Chinese expression, 塞翁失马, which is basically this idea that what can seem good in one moment eventually may become bad. And what can seem bad in a moment may actually become good. Right? Only time will tell. So I guess that was one of those moments where it was a setback, but it forced me to think about, well, what do I want to do besides just following this predetermined path? And when I graduated college, decided to move to China, and was just intrigued. I'd gotten a chance to go out there a few summers and was like, I need to be here. I need to be at the forefront of what's happening in this country. This was 2006 when everyone was saying, oh, China, it's this emerging giant. What's going on over there? And I was just fascinated and curious, and got in my head that I would become a journalist, and moved to China and got a gig at Newsweek to cover climate and tech. And that's where things began in 2007 for me. Very quickly realized that writing about climate doesn't solve the climate problem. And I was building tech products for Newsweek. They didn't believe in the internet in 2007. So I went about building blogs and other products for them, and very quickly realized I had to be a founder, and got a fellowship at Tsinghua University. And while I was there, started my first business as a newsletter, and then eventually became a data platform focused on agricultural technology. Sold that to a Chinese business partner. I raised my first round of capital, all from Chinese investors, and then got funding from the Brazilian government to move back to Brazil to start my second business, which is still running, called Insta Agro. It's the third largest marketplace for farmers online in Brazil. And then I got a call from the one company I ever wanted to work for, Palantir Technologies. And I was dating my now husband, who's living in New York, and they offered me a job at their New York office in business development internationally, and just had a blast learning how do you operationalize big data for non-technical consumers. And I think that's a big moment of opportunity as we all enter this new stage of AI, which is powered, by the way, by big data. So really understanding, like, data for data's sake isn't useful, but you have to solve real problems. And that was a big focus for us at Palantir. And I wasn't doing anything for climate work day to day. So to scratch my green itch, I started a reusable water bottle program at Palantir, funded by Palantir. And I worked with the kitchen staff and ran that for 3 years, just as a side activity. So that's really kind of the start of Kadeya, really seeing how reusables are designed as a business today, how they are not scalable, and why they are not solving the single-use problem. And mathematically will never solve the single-use problem. So kind of took that dagger in my heart and said, I need to learn more, but I need a blank slate. And I got Palantir's support to go to business school at MIT, and basically just started tinkering, took every class possible, every class assignment, applied it toward the Kadeya question. And being in an environment like MIT, I mean, surround yourself, everyone here understands entrepreneurship. So, you understand the value of surrounding yourself with people who take you seriously enough to disagree with you and give you feedback. And that's what I got for 2 years, and decided to go full time, June of 2020 with Kadeya.
Let me just ask you, but as you were you looking for a problem to solve, or did the single-use plastic sort of hit you in the face? In a matter of speaking, like, why this problem? You could have gone after things.
Well, I have that obsession, right, from when I was in second grade, and just was annoyed by all the garbage that we were producing. Then it kind of came home for me living in China from 2007 to 2015. I saw that country go from full reuse systems for hydration to single use in 8 years. And so, first of all, anything that happens in a large country like China or India, right? You look around and first of all, it's like an acceleration of what's going to happen globally. By the time I left China in 2015, there was no more landfill space. Like Beijing didn't have landfill space. Shanghai, Guangzhou, go down the list. Xi'an,
U.S. East Coast
Chengdu.
is running out of landfill space.
Well, the U.S. has been exporting our trash all these years, and so that precipitated in 2018 the China National Sword Policy, which said we're not going to take foreign trash anymore. That's why we're now facing a landfill crisis, because we still continue to export to, call it like second tier and third tier trash destinations. So Southeast Asia, for example. And when you look at the world, the 12 countries that most contribute waste to the oceans, they're all in East Asia. Mm-hmm. But it's not their trash.
Yeah.
Our trash.
So when I go to the Costco store and I buy a case of plastic water bottles, I'm thinking that plastic can be recycled. Is that not true? I mean, this is kind of a lowball question, but
yeah. Anything. So first of all, says it can be recycled. Physically and chemically could potentially be recycled. So if we're talking about like cement, I mean, in the same way that I'm mortal, am I going to die right now? No. Am I going to die eventually? Yes. Right? Like recyclability is the potential. And the way you can look real quick, if you don't know, is flip over any plastic container. It's got those 3 arrows in a triangle shape, and there's a number in the middle. If you don't see a number or you don't see that triangle, it is not recyclable. So like Tetra Pak, which is like, you get those boxes of boxed water or milk or whatever. They are not recyclable. They have the 3 arrows, but they don't have a number. And then they say, go to this website to find where you can recycle Tetra Pak. So recyclability right now is potentiality of it being recycled. The real question is then what happens factually and what's the business model? First of all, the business model, completely unviable. Recycling, manufacturing systems, plants are going out of business. That model, just like if we're talking to your point about in your intro, if we're looking to fund solutions that are viable from a business perspective, recycling is not it. Full stop.
Yeah.
But setting aside the business model, even somehow figure out how to create the funding, bonds from the government, for example, to fund that. At the end of the day, the recycling chain, the value chain does not work, A. And B, at the end of the day, less than the data I've seen, which the Trump administration, I think, scrubbed from the EPA. I was looking for it yesterday. In 2024, the EPA had reported that less than 4% of plastics in the United States gets recycled.
Right.
And anyway, globally, history of plastic, less than 9% has ever been recycled. In what world is a 9% success rate considered a passing grade?
So I want to ask you,
Rafiq, let me add one thing to that, just as another point here. Even for our commercial operation here, we have a 36,000 square foot production environment. When we were looking at our garbage disposal, and we got a garbage bin, we got a recycling bin, and the company said, if you want to pay more for the recycling bin, you're welcome to, but we're not actually recycling anything anymore, because the countries that we were exporting that and to piecemeal all of it together are no longer accepting it. And so we got a recycling bin. It makes us feel good at the local level, but at the macro level, it's all going into landfills anyway, regardless of anything. So I just want to throw that out there as another little
great data point.
I wanted to switch maybe to that amazing kiosk robotics beverage station in the image behind you. What the heck is in it? What is your product? And let me also throw in, as you try to solve this problem from a design standpoint, what led you to the design that you came up with, and how did you pivot? What touch on some of those things, because many in the audience are very interested in how you take that concept and design something better than what was already there.
Yeah, absolutely. So the machine behind me, which is going into construction sites in Chicago starting the first week of February 2026.
Okay.
So commercializing, turning the corner. The machine for the end consumer, like all of us, operates as a vending machine. You go up to it, you obviously see a touch screen. You would pick what beverage you want. We're carrying all types of cold, non-alcoholic beverages, branded products that you know and love, your Cokes, Gatorades, Topo Chicos. And then after you've paid, your beverage gets filled fresh on demand in our infinitely reusable plastic-free stainless steel bottle. You grab it, enjoy your delicious drink. It is delicious. It's amazing water. And then, yeah,
Not too far away, even right
bottle
away.
model, add to your resume. So, and then when you're done, and this is like the biggest kind of change from the status quo is instead of dropping the bottle in a container, a trash bin, or recycling bin, you bring it back to any station in the network, scan the QR code of the bottle, little door opens here. We do a quick overhead inspection, milliseconds, to make sure there's no debris inside that we don't want to deal with, or that the bottle isn't kind of, scuffed up or dented beyond use. And then the consumer goes on their way. So if you think about the consumer experience, we have not only approximated what they already know how to do, we're actually making a lot of it faster and easier. Like the self-identification, the payment, that's all going to be done really through your phone or your touch or the apps, right? The dispense is faster than a traditional vending machine. You could say, yeah, the return is kind of annoying. The way we've solved for that, and this was one of the first questions we had to address, was, well, how do you build a whole network of these machines and as a startup and deliver value of a whole network on that for that first user, right? That's the network effect problem or the cold start problem. And what we found is by going to industrial closed work environments, you can see this looks like a manufacturing plant behind me, we are able to kind of shrink the environment down to the point where returning the bottle is as convenient as returning a bottle to a trash bin. So that was one thing, was we said, like, we want to minimize behavior change. In my almost 20 years in climate, I think that's the first mistake climate founders make, is thinking that the goodwill that we all want to show day to day is going to be enough to drive someone to do something very differently than they do it today. And we said we actually have to be more convenient and faster and easier than status quo. And then on the back end, and this is where the DeepHollow expertise in particular, I think, shines. It's basically a little bottling plant in the back, and we didn't have to reinvent the wheel too much on this, right? So it's, on the one hand, a soda machine. We're using Lancer soda subsystems. That Lancer is what Coca-Cola uses for their soda fountains. But there's many others, right? We're not beholden to Lancer. And then on the other side is a little dishwasher that we are buying from the world's leading industrial dishwash company called Hobart, where we were lucky enough to have a relationship already. And they said, we actually have something perfect for you, ready to go. And then, so we didn't reinvent any of the subsystems. I do think that gives us some of a head start in terms of building technology. Like, we didn't have to start from scratch and invent something new. We also immediately get grandfathered into all the certifications and compliance. And then the more novel elements of the machine, right? We're using 2 robotic arms. Again, we're not reinventing robotic arms, but that's relatively new. And the costs on those have been coming down. And then we have the incoming inspection, which is machine learning. So we've trained that model to identify any debris inside the bottle. Again, nothing too scientific or extreme. And then the fact that we are kind of off the shelf subsystems, you might say, well, what's your defensibility there? We have IP, we have a utility patent on the machine, we have a design patent on the bottle. We've identified 4 additional elements of the machine that we will patent. But at the end of the day, patents only buy you a certain amount of time, really, 12, 18 months. Like, if you think your IP is going to protect you from a commercial and competitive perspective, I think that's a fool's errand. And instead, what Kadeya has said is, let's be a platform and let's design a platform business where basically anything inside the machine is interchangeable, and that opens up the entire supply chain that already exists for beverages. And we can just dip into that. We don't have to reinvent how bags and boxes get plugged into a machine to make a soda for you. But I'd say more importantly, what it does is it incentivizes all incumbents who make better margins with Kadeya, who want to work with Kadeya and want to see Kadeya's success, because there's various strategic, structural reasons why they can't do what we are doing. And so instead, we just become everyone's favorite new friend. And every major corporation, instead of saying, well, we're going to spend, Coca-Cola spent $500 million to build their first freestyle. We did it at a fraction of that cost. Coca-Cola cannot do this for various reasons. But in any case, instead of someone saying, I'm going to spend $500 million trying to imitate and improve on Kadeya, why don't I just start selling directly into them and getting double the margin I'm currently getting? Oh, I think you're on mute now, Rafiq.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm going to say something controversial. When we first met, I did not have my head wrapped around what you were doing. And Mitul and I talked about this. So Mitul, I guess the question is, how do we pick what we do pick? And what is sort of this deeper dive into technology? What are the things? And then we can come back to Kadeya and try to get into what changed, right? But you wanna speak to a little bit about the residency diligence?
Yes, I think you hit upon it initially, Rafiq, right? So we're looking for impact. We have a tag that's a people and planet thesis for Fund 2, and we're looking at, do the companies we're investing in fit those verticals? So for those two, check, and then of course the third one that I threw out after was ability to execute, and just looking at the phenomenal pedigree and resume here of not only Manuela but the founding team that we were able to meet. Clearly, there's a focused initiative to execute, whether it's logistics, fulfillment, robotics expertise. I know you kind of hand waved that one away, Manuela, about it's just an off-the-shelf robotic arm. But there's a lot that went into that software platform behind the scenes, right? And just the wherewithal to say, okay, yes, you're building a hardware product, but you're taking a lot of off-the-shelf mature technologies, whether it's vending components, whether it's robotic arms, whether it's payment systems. That's all showing a level of maturity that is driving kind of the execution score in our rubrics, right? And so that at the crux of it, we have a very diligent intake process, and then the residency is a second piece. Rafiq, I don't know if this is do you want to segue into the residency now? But I think there's a twofold discussion here.
We can touch on it.
So we decide, based on the company's pedigree in the investment thesis, one, is it an investable paradigm or investable concept and an investable team? But the second piece is, do they need help, right? So it's not to say that on day one, a new founder, if we're always only investing in mature, stable founders and stable companies, we would never have seed or Series A or seed investments. So it's not to say that we only invest in extremely mature teams. We will invest in great ideas that are, again, impactful to the world and have good execution capability. But that's where the residency model comes in for us. And so for that, it's an X number of weeks. It's not an accelerator model. It's not a fixed cohort, nothing of that sort. We're looking at what are the stumbling blocks for that specific company? Where are the gaps as they come into our investment portfolio? Is it gapped on services? Is it gapped in marketing? Is it gapped in human factors? The whole Pareto of things that you can look at, distribution, things of that sort. And we make a decision of saying, okay, this is some investment company, or it's a company that we want to invest in, and we see value add in engaging with this group of individuals, but they need help. And based on our Motorola network and pedigree, Rafiq's background, of course, MP Consulting with my background, we're able to provide that ecosystem of support, and we enter companies into what we're calling a residency. So there's a whole curriculum, if you will, that is selective for the gaps that we identify at the intake process.
And what we're hoping to do
Go ahead.
I just want to add what we're hoping to do in 2026 is actually formalize that a bit more as we start to take, an even more active role in finding good deals, such as Kadeya and what Manuela is doing, and basically allocate a percentage of our initial check towards solving for those gaps. And so we'll have more info on that, I think, in the first quarter. But just coming back to, founding teams. Yeah, Denny is the CTO, and Manuela, maybe you should talk a little bit about your podcast. I mean, what are you trying to achieve with the podcast? And we're going to get around to funding as well. And anyone that has questions, people that are coming into the session, if you've got something specific for any of us, just drop it in. Yeah, what's happening on the podcast front?
Yeah, we launched a couple weeks ago the podcast called Unbottled. You can find us on YouTube and Spotify. And we've had 4 episodes drop so far. And the goal is a few things. Excuse me. So, first of all, I think I imagine DiPaolo, why you guys ultimately did decide to invest in part was our traction that we've been able to demonstrate. Correct me if I'm wrong. We have 27 stations pre-booked with incredible global industrial multinationals. Ingredient, Turner, Georgia Pacific, Ecolab, Compass Group, the U.S. Air Force. And we have a $32 million qualified pipeline that came to us inbound. I mean, other than my time on webinars and podcasts and some earned media and some conferences, that's it. So obviously we should keep doing that. Obviously we should keep telling our story. Would be showing up where people are, because when people hear our story, what happens is they love it. They love the solution. They want it to come into being. They want to use it themselves. They also come to understand what our ICP, our ideal customer persona, is. We're very precise and consistent.
Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yep.
Is it the person in an office who has a water bottle and can go to the fountain?
Absolutely not. And I think that was probably also one of your hangups. I think you'd originally said, well, people have reusable bottles. Why don't we just use that? Like, that's the low tech, low cost way, let's be honest. And absolutely, if you're one of the people who contribute to the $10 billion market of reusable bottles every year, please keep doing it. I do it. That's me also. Is the market for cold, non-alcoholic, single-serve packaged beverages is $2 trillion. And it's growing twice as fast. So Kadeya's market, initially we said, we aren't focused on the people who care about reuse and sustainability. It's a niche market, but it's being served. We want to focus on the remaining $1.99999 trillion of single-serve packaged consumers. And once you say that, then start to understand, okay, well, where are these people? Where are these environments? And then I was lucky enough that COVID hit. Again, one of those silver lining Saiwang Sharma moments where I thought we'd go to white collar offices and university campuses. That's what I knew. And with COVID, no one was going to those environments. And so I stepped back and said, well, where are people going to go no matter what? And that turns out to be frontline workers, specifically industrial workforces. So construction workers, factory workers, fulfillment center workers, military personnel, and soldiers. And I was lucky enough when we moved back to Chicago 4.5 years ago to bump into a woman who works at Gilbane Construction. And she said something I'd never heard until that point, which was, I can get you on a construction site tomorrow. Like this, pull from the market. And after I did my discovery research for a couple of months, I called her up, and 3 weeks later, I was installing our second prototype on the Gilbane construction site in downtown Indianapolis for IU Health. And the project executive, before I plugged it in, said, I want to buy it because when Kadeya leaves, I have to go back to buying and distributing pallets of bottles of water. And that's the light bulb moment that Kadeya is solving fundamentally for these populations, not a plastics problem.
Oops, we're having some. Manuela, hold on, your audio just cut out. I'm not sure if it's a Wi-Fi issue or not. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you, Rafiq.
Yeah, I think Manuela, maybe you should read. Yeah, you're
Maybe the headset.
You're not muted, so try to rejoin maybe? I don't know. Raquel, any ideas?
She was blipping out a little bit
Earlier, yeah.
earlier as well. This looks like a longer.
I'm not sure what to help, to be honest.
Maybe exit and come back.
I will. I'll exit and come back through my phone.
You're here.
Oh, we got you.
Okay. Sorry about that,
All
guys. Let me know again if it happens. Where did I lose you?
Well,
We're really excited.
Had an aha moment. Sorry. Yeah, the aha moment and realized that you could be there for frontline workers. Sorry, Mitul, jump in.
No, so you were very excited animated and it cut.
I usually am.
When is she not excited and animated?
I know. I'm so excited about what we're doing. What can I say?
Let's talk about fundraising a little bit because I think people also want to know venture capital. What was 2025 like? I just looked at PitchBook data and it said that we were at the end of the third quarter, 86 billion raised by funds. And it's a third year of decline. And we were hoping that 2025 is a way back and 26 is even better. But potentially we're in a third year of declining venture capital. So where does a startup go for funding in that climate? And I think you're straddling that in an interesting way. If you want to touch on like kind of what you learned in 2025, and obviously I'm talking a little bit about your crowdfunding campaign, which seems to be going really well. You're on WeFunder as well. And I saw that you crossed the $1 million mark and a 1.5 million raise. We're having a little echo. So yeah, just let's switch a little bit and figure out. Okay, and she will have to be back. So apologies about the technical glitches. But Mitul, in the meantime, like what did you see in Kadeya? What convinced you to go back in this year?
So I mean, same thing as I mentioned before. The passion, the solid team that Manuel has hired behind the scenes that don't necessarily have a voice, but as we audit the engineering and risk assess what is custom, what's off the shelf, what are the supply chain risks, what are the stumbling blocks that would disrupt the story. Because everyone pitching has a story, right? And our job here in terms of making sound hardware investments is going to be making sure those stumbling blocks are managed and looking at, okay, the fact that it is modular and it is kind of the ecosystem that they're trying to build, not necessarily just a custom product deployment, that goes a long way in risk mitigation of deploying more and more kiosks, even as supply chains change, tariffs change. Keeping that modular approach to vending and kind of appending yourself into, the liquid in a box or the
bag of box. Yeah.
Not having to customize that drastically alters the price points in terms of being able to use a scale that's already there. And the supply chains already exist nationwide at that point. You're not reinventing that whole supply chain. So whether it's the actual customized product, whether it's the electronics running within it, the power delivery, the water delivery, everything is kind of modular from that perspective where you're not going to have major supply chain disruption. And so from that perspective, I see a huge positive.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Are you in one of those construction sites with no Wi-Fi?
I'm in my cousin's apartment, actually. So yeah, I'm in New York City, and speaking at a conference right after this.
Okay. So yeah, we were talking
Yeah.
about fundraising, like what you learned, what's happening now, and yeah, jump into
You know,
that one.
I don't know that I've learned very much, in the sense that like the market keeps changing so constantly that any lesson from one phase, you kind of can't necessarily repeat it. I think I've learned how to engage investors better, how to talk and tell my story better. I think, like Rafiq, maybe my story, the Kadeya story, has tightened up, right, and improved since we first met. My ability to explain why solving for hydration on industrial work sites gets over the hump of reusable bottles, which I know was one of your bigger concerns at the beginning. So I've gotten better at telling that story, and what we have seen is individuals love Kadeya. The world wants Kadeya. VCs have certain obstacles in general when it comes to Kadeya. We all know hardware for VC is a tough math problem. It's not SaaS, which is what VC was really created to do. And we can talk about how the VC world is completely reshaping itself. LPs are pulling away. The amount of money going to emerging managers is going down. Everyone wants to be in AI. Like, we know all this stuff. I'm not going to go down that list. So there's a disconnect where Kadeya is overwhelmed with demand. Customers want us. The market wants us. Individuals want us. They're using it. They love it. And then traditional venture capital can't quite get there. We've had great VCs like yourselves. It's been mostly micro VCs in the Midwest who understand the industrial problem or the hardware, the opportunity.
What about this whole move towards, we are going to back manufacturing and deep tech. Hard tech actually had 17% of deployments. Obviously, AI, is taking most of the
Yeah.
capital, about half of it. Did you see any change at all through the course of the year in a weird way, where people are embracing deep tech and hard tech more, perhaps?
I think they say they are, but they are still funding hard tech and deep tech AI solutions. That's what I'm seeing over and over again. So many people, so many funds say we fund hardware, we fund the innovative, groundbreaking, revolutionary solutions that are going to remake our economy. And then when you talk to them, they say, yeah, it's only nothing physical. Yes, and I'll say where I have gotten better is getting very focused and clear-eyed about a fund's thesis and what they actually invest in, not what they say they invest in. So looking at their portfolios and assessing, have they actually ever done a hardware investment, and will they do another one? That has been a major lesson. Getting quickly to that point in the first conversation, in the first 5 minutes. Otherwise, I'm like, I don't want to talk to you. Like, let's save everybody some time. And as a woman founder, I'm going to have to talk to 50 times as many investors as a man, a white man. So
I mean, that stat hasn't changed for women founders.
It's gotten worse.
That's not
it's gotten worse. So why are we doing the WeFunder, right? Well, it's because individuals want our solution. So why are we going to wait for VC to be our gatekeeper? The money is there. And also, like, the venture world is really changing quickly. I'm seeing more and more GPs not raising another fund and going back to being angels. Like, the VC model is in such disarray anyway. A lot of VCs, like, you guys have a very clear focus. You're in the Midwest where people are like, we do what we say and say what we do. We're not like spinning stories, but I find the general market is people are lost. It's all vibe investing at this point. So why am I going to wait for someone to vibe, with a solution that's going to solve the entire plastics problem? So we said, let's just take things into our own hands. And that's why we're doing the podcast, because it's going to keep the flywheel of marketing going. Why am I everywhere, like you've said? Well, because anytime an idea of the conversation of plastic or water comes up, people should say, have you heard of Kadeya? And we're focused only on Midwest customers. So like, we are locking in that word of mouth network. And then why are we doing the WeFunder? Well, because we don't need to wait for VC to wake up. And we felt we had an existing audience that we could leverage. And B, we could leverage the WeFunder platform. And we have exceeded every target. Like they've said, like, you are running the best campaign we've ever seen. We're going to do a case study on you. We were one of the top 5 campaigns in the last month, and we were the only one that was on its first month.
Yeah.
We
So
were the
people
only
can
early
find,
stage startup.
tell
Yeah.
us where people can find it. It's wefunder.com/Kadeya, I think, right?
Yep. That's
Yeah.
it. Full
No,
stories there.
it's quite informative. But here's my thoughts on what's happening with VC, if
Yeah.
anybody cares. I agree that it is in flux, but those that have been around for quite a bit of time, and by now I'm 10 years into investing in different things. It comes in cycles. This is obviously the deepest sort of downturn that we've seen. But perhaps rightly so. I just think we had too many funds, too many copycats, too many people who thought that becoming a GP, starting their own fund, was going to be the greatest thing that they could do with their time, and it's not, and it's not efficient. So raising capital is not efficient, deploying is not efficient. So these are things that were bound to happen when there's a bit of a saturation. But where I think it's going to come back to the norm is where investors add value. At the end of the day, whether you write a $5,000 angel check or you write $500,000 into a company, you need to add some value and be authentic about what your value is. So Mitul and I just have, we started this 5 years ago, not thinking that at one point advanced manufacturing across energy, climate, and physical AI would be the thing that people, gravitate towards. They're starting to like that, like what we're talking about, like the things we're investing in. But you can't be a fly-by-night operator in anything you do, right? People are going to find you out. So a lot of investors that are now deep tech and hard tech, like they should really be deep tech and hard tech if they're going to describe themselves as such. So my only reason to still be in this game, as difficult as it is, if I write one check, then let it be meaningful. Let's give meaningful support. Let's tell you the problems that might be under the hood, which
Yeah.
Mitchell loves to do. And hopefully, some good comes out of it and we support each other and there's a good outcome at the end. That's all you can do. Like we never started this to be something that we're not. We're not a huge fund. We're not going to be all over the place. Um, and stick to what you know, like invest in things that may make sense. So a lot of people don't understand hard tech, but look around the world, these big problems in climate, in health, and in all of the things that make great impact, it's not going to be just software.
Yeah.
And we did get into AI, but look, you have a lot of data, and I'm sure you're looking at what you can infer from that. AI might be a bit of a buzzword, but ultimately, you're solving problems, you're adding intelligence. So I want to be sensitive to time. Raquel, if you want to come back, are there any raised hands, any questions? I know this is a weird sort of mix between a podcast and a webcast. Always nice to have some folks on, but I'll kind of pass it back. And then
Yeah.
any last thoughts? I think we had a last thoughts question that we haven't gone to yet.
We didn't have any questions, just a few comments. It seems someone in the audience is agreeing a lot with what you said, Manuel, about VC model is totally broken. We did share for everyone the WeFunder page of Kadeya in case you guys are interested. And we have a last message here. Hats off to you for the clarity of purpose and impact, Manuel and Kadeya. Good luck for you as you scale. We find, sorry, there's a
What?
lot of messages now.
Yeah, no, I think
I think, yeah.
there's
There's
some.
one question though. Is the change in the VC model affecting the Dipalo raise? Do you have any competitors? I think the competitors one is for Kadeya, probably, and the VC model is for you, Rafiq.
Well, the VC model, and thank you for the question, but this is more about Kadeya and what we're doing, so less about the Dipalo raise. VCs are raising all the time, as startups are. We're kindred spirits in many ways. Emerging managers and startups are in the same boat always be raising. Nothing has really changed. I think we do have a little bit more momentum. I feel like people like the advanced manufacturing manufacturing, and they like some of these areas because these are impactful. But I'll ask Manuela about competitors to Kadeya. Yeah, you can speak.
There's some solutions that solve similar problems in different sectors. Like Bevy is a company we get asked about. So Bevy only focuses really and only works in white collar environments, and really only works in environments where you also have a dishwasher and a human to load cups into the dishwasher and then unload those cups. So we're not going after white collar. We're not directly competitive. Some people think about drop water, which maybe you've seen in some airports. And that is like a vending machine that dispenses your preferred beverage into a kind of PLA, which is a plant-based plastic sleeve, and then into a cardboard sleeve after that. So the idea being like, we're plastic free. So clearly everyone's nibbling at the plastic free problem, but Kadeya is the only winner on really delivering you a grab and go packaged beverage that's plastic free and is at price parity with single use with superior margins. I didn't mention that earlier. We deliver better margins than, like, I make more money selling a bottle of Coke than Coke today. Is Coke going to come over to be Kadeya's biggest customer? You darn bet it will. Also, Netflix wants to acquire, is it Warner Brothers?
Yeah.
I bet Kadeya is going to acquire some big beverage companies in the future because we are the channel, we are the infrastructure, we are the platform. What does Coke do? They do brand and distribution. We're taking care of distribution for them.
You heard it here first.
So,
okay.
The competitors nibbled at the edge of the problem and didn't take the time to fundamentally understand not only the scaled problem that they're solving, but the human problem that they are solving.
Hey, last thoughts, and maybe I'll start with Mitul. 2026 is coming up. Our last webcast before year end. What are you excited about as you look to 2026?
So, I mean, there is a lot of excitement and activity in robotics and automation, which Kadeya doesn't have legs and arms, but within the enclosure they do, and so the entire ecosystem of automation, robotics is going to be booming here soon. It's just starting to percolate out into, I guess, the open space, but like humanoid robotics and just automation in general, the concept of physical AI is absolutely booming. So I think when people think of AI right now, it's more LLMs and chatbots and what is helping you draft emails better and get images and things of that sort. But really behind the scenes, whether it's self-driving cars, whether it's refillable water bottles, whether it's other robotics in terms of physical humanoid robots, 2026, 2027, you're going to see an explosion in that ecosystem. It's pretty exciting.
Manuela, what are you excited about?
I am excited about what Mitul just talked about and the attention that will be placed on those categories. My fear is it's going to be all on like the software solutions for the most part, and then like there are going to be like the breakout humanoid robot solutions that the Andreessens and whatever jump on, so you'll get like a lot of vibe investing again. But the problem with that is, again, like I'm not really sure what the problem of a humanoid robot solves. So people are sometimes like, it's a hammer looking for a nail. People are building solutions because it like tickles their fancy, right? That's why we have crypto. I'll be honest, like what does crypto really do? We can talk about that later.
That's another podcast. Okay.
So the problem with that is it sucks the oxygen out of the room and the capital away from solutions that are solving real problems today for things that are just sexy and hype based. And who ends up paying the price for that is the small startups who, we have to kind of float around in the wake of people changing their minds and learning repeated lessons over and over again, instead of people really, I think, building and investing in fundamentals.
I am hopeful that, the perseverance abilities of our ecosystem and maybe the folks that are not vibing their way through life are going to, always be there, and you have to lean into that, and people will. So I'm more hopeful that capital will find its way to good sort of users of that capital. I totally agree. There's many broken aspects to all of this. But anyway, yeah, and I think, I agree with Samir in the comments in terms of China being a reminder of how focus and perseverance can start to pay off on a macro scale. So I think the U.S. in some weird ways may be finding that reshoring manufacturing, whether you can do it quickly or not, all of these efforts lead to maybe better efficiencies in our domestic companies. Where are you making the Kadeya? It's right here. So, yeah, where are you manufacturing? Yeah, just touch on that in
Yeah.
a quick minute. We're running out of
Yeah,
time.
the plan had been, of course, to assemble in the West Loop in Chicago, and then tariffs hit. So we will be assembling in France, where we have a team of engineers, and then we'll ship the finished good here and only pay a 15% tariff. So we've been able to actually keep our bill of materials the exact same.
And that's a very interesting sort of play for the EU to be a manufacturing hub. And I know that you have talent and team in France. Would you ever look at manufacturing here in China? Like, how does that play out as you scale?
We would love to manufacture in Mexico. Is how we think about like the next phase once hopefully the tariffs kind of like balance out. But I fear under Trump that tariffs will continue to just be like a little mouse that he's like batting around, and he's a mean cat. And so small businesses, like that's why reshoring isn't working, because the tariffs are inconsistent and unpredictable.
Right. So, I mean, Mitul's got a lot to say on that, but we'll have to have another
Okay,
session maybe after the new year. But I think I'm hopeful that despite all of this, there can still be amazing new tech that we were able to fund. And
absolutely.
we have quite a few companies in our portfolio that are manufacturing in the US, and the units are too big to ship, or they don't want
Yeah.
to get into the tariff situation. And so, we'll see how that plays out. But hey, I'm going to turn it back to Raquel. Anything else, or do we? I'm not sure what that means.
No, I
Oh,
think we
picture
covered pretty
time.
much.
There's some kind of a picture. What does that mean? Picture time. Everyone look at the camera, says Monica from the background. She's the producer
Okay.
of this. I guess this is gonna go on social media somewhere. But anyway, you guys can all get in touch with us, and you'll find this recording on our YouTube channel, Patel's from the Heart Side. And happy holidays. Take some time, breathe.
Yes.
Tough year, and may 2026 actually be some wind in our backs. So take care, guys. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.